What do you know about the 2021 Canyon Spectral? Do you think it looks pretty much the same as last year's bike? Well, you're going to need to think again, because this bike has had a massive redesign for 2021. In fact, I'm pretty excited to ride it. So here are the 6 things that you need to know about this new Canyon Spectral. Before we get stuck into all that though, here is your friendly reminder to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We've got lots coming up from me, Rachel, plus more of the rest of our team, such as Liam and Matt, doing reviews of new bikes. So we've got the new Boardman full suspension bike and also a gravel wheel size comparison video. So just click subscribe and then make sure you turn on those notifications so you get an email or a notification to say that we've just published a new video. Anyway, with that out of the way, let's get back to this Canyon Spectral. So number 1 of our 6 things, it's slacker and it's longer. So first up, this bike gets the made more slack treatment. And Canyon has given this bike a head angle of 64.5 degrees. So I rode the last version of this Spectral, and that was way back in 2018, and it has to be said, I wasn't that impressed. So yep, the bike was great value for money if you take a look at the components, but in terms of geometry, it was more, I felt, more long-legged XC bike with a 66 degree head angle than really rowdy 150mm trail bike. From the looks of the slacker head angle on this bike, a longer reach and the longer chainstays, and of course the longer wheelbase that gives it, the Spectral looks set to be a much more planted trail/enduring machine. So you can buy a RockShox or a Fox build, and that Fox build comes with a 160mm fork for an even slacker head angle. Plus, you can buy a Fox build that comes with a 160mm fork rather than a 150mm RockShox one to slacken the head tubal angle off even further. That bike is called the Shred Spec bike, so I'm going to let you decide whether you tell your mates that or not. In terms of length and that bike getting longer, our medium bike gets a reach of 460mm, so that's 20mm up on last year's bike. And lastly, there is a flip chip, so you can alter the bike's geometry by 0.5 degrees between 2 different positions, so high or low, slack and less slack, whatever you want to call it. Point 2, the seat angle is steeper also. So there are more geometry changes. The seat angle is steeper at 76 degrees. Canyon have steepened the effective seat angle of this bike to make seated climbing more efficient. But it also has another effect, and so that other effect is helping the rider feel less folded over when seated. So had the front centre just got longer without steepening that seat tube angle, the seated climbing position would have felt quite different and would have been less good for climbing because you would have felt folded over the bike. So this means that the effective top tube numbers stay pretty much the same as last year, even though there is a longer reach. And effective top tube is the part of the geometry that you feel that when you're seated and climbing. In at number 3, there is a new suspension kinematic. So this Spectral gets the brand's triple phase suspension system as per the Sender, which is their downhill bike. That means that this bike gets increased anti-squat early in the travel and around the sag point, which the brand says should give a better pedalling platform. They also say that the suspension is more progressive now at the end of the stroke, which is something that they say that they did to make the bike more controllable on really rough trails. At number 4, the frame has features to make mechanic life, whether that's yours or your mechanic's, easier. So firstly, there's a replaceable thread insert for the main pivot, meaning that if you wreck a thread, then you can just replace that insert rather than part of your carbon bike. Anything that's done to make the bike more durable with less potential ride stopping problems is a good thing in our book. The bike also gets internal guide cable routing, so that's all throughout the frame. The cables also seem to transition seamlessly throughout the bottom of the front triangle into the rear chainstay. It looks really nice and hopefully easy to use. So number 5 is an odd one. You can get this bike in both a 29er and a 27.5 inch wheel size. Or can you? Well, our tip is, don't be fooled. The new geometry is for the 29er bike only. So whilst you can get a Spectral in either 27.5 or 29er wheel size, it's the new 29er which gets the makeover. The 27.5 inch bike is essentially last year's geometry. Having a look at the spec and the prices, I think the purpose here, aside from offering those overall 2 wheel sizes, is to keep the alloy bikes in the frame for a while longer and hit a lower price point along the way. So you can still get a 27.5 inch bike with an aluminium frame for $2,499, whereas the 29ers like the one we have here are carbon only, and the bikes start at $3,599. Lastly, at number 6, we've got all the finer details for you. So, what else do you need to know? Well, there is a rather deep chainstay for added stiffness. But the size and the shape of that chainstay means that you can only run a 30 to a 34 tooth chainring, otherwise you are going to risk either rubbing the chain or the top or the ring on the chainstay itself. Down at this end of the bike there is also one of those chain slap protectors which have proved to have been really good at keeping the bike nice and quiet on other bikes, and hopefully it will do the same for this Canyon. You'll also be glad to hear that you can fit a water bottle under the shock. And there's also a handy mount under the top tube to attach a tube, some tools or a tool bag. Lastly, there's a threaded bottom bracket and Canyon's neat through axle with that folding handle. So our test bike, what is it? Well, the bike I have here is a Spectral 29er CF8. So that's the second cheapest bike in the range, which comes in at $4,349. And this is the shred spec version, so 160mm Fox fork up front. For that money, you get that Fox, and it is a Fox Performance Elite Grip 2 fork with, like I said, 160mm travel. There's also a Fox DPX2 Performance Elite shock, and this bike gets full Shimano XT. So that's 4-pot brakes and a 12-speed drivetrain. To keep it rolling along, the bike gets DT Swiss XM 1700 wheels with a 30mm internal width and Maxxis tyres. So Canyon have put a 2.5 inch Minion DHF at the front and a 2.4 inch DHR at the rear. Elsewhere, there's a range of Canyon G5 components, including this rather funky looking G5 stem. So this is just a first look and 6 things that you need to know about this bike, but I will be reviewing it shortly. So if you want to see the full review, make sure that you subscribe to our channel, or you can check us out on www.off.road.cc. Other things we've got in the pipeline are a Ragley hardtail review, and also, as well as reviewing this bike, I've got the nuke-proof Giga in a 27.5 inch on test. So that review will be coming up shortly too. As ever, thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon.